the culture topic. And like last week, I started with digging into the whole violence thing and talking more about it and having dialogue about it, because I do think that Black people need to understand the nuances of gang activity, drug activity, urban communities, and disinvestment and things like and those things. I do believe that we strive so hard to be great that sometimes, we forget to take a bird's eye view at things and say, wait a second, you know, this ain't right. And I think that puts us in the position to shame and blame victims. Um, I'm not saying that is that is all true, but a lot of times I feel like when we pick ourselves up and we get do better in life, we feel like everybody can do that. Like everybody should be able to do it. Everybody should be able to pick themselves up by their bootstraps and do what I did. But I do think that we have to take a wider look, even us. Even Black people have to take a wider look at the dynamics and the nuances that caused a lot of the situations in urban communities and in the cities that have issues with violence and drugs and guns and things like that. So I'll start there. And I guess I can transition into my talking points by saying we all know, we've all been watching the news, and they have been making a big ordeal and big, like, stories, large stories, or, it's been on CNN, it's been on the local news, it's been on national news about the federal agents, the current administration. I don't like saying his name. Current administration sending federal agents into Chicago. So I was listening to the mayor yesterday, and I wanted to get an idea of what that means to her, because she doesn't play when it comes to the current administration sending threats. She don't play around with them, and that's one thing I definitely respect about her. And so she was, from her understanding, it seems as though the federal agents in Chicago means that is ATF, DEA, and FBI. You can look those acronyms up, and 100 federal investigators to work on active cases. And if you're really into what's going on in Chicago, you know that there was a big story that came out last year when a former FBI investigator had mentioned how Chicago was not closing cases, and it came up around the missing women in the city and how those cases were not being closed or dealt with. So I guess this could be more investigated, and with the uptick in violence, which we'll talk about again one day, the uptick in violence, because I have my feelings about there being an uptick. I don't know if there's an uptick. I question if the previous leaders were honest about the numbers. But furthermore, so there will be 100 federal investigators to work on active cases. And so the people of Chicago are curious to know, like, where's this funding going to come from to fund these agents being in the city? Like, we got enough worries in the city. Where is the money going to come from? Because funding of the police is already, of law enforcement, is already in question. So the mayor was just indicating how that the funding will come from possible federal grants, but she's waiting to see, because the government always put a caveat on the city in the mayor's opinion. And it seems as though the current administration wants Chicago to stop being a sanctuary city in order to receive grants. So this administration wants the city to stop being a safe haven for immigrants. Um, and the mayor says that's not possible. She's not going to do that, and she's not participating in the quid pro quo. And I almost like believe her wholeheartedly, because he has spoken about that before, and he's a quid pro quo kind of guy. You know, Everything about him is quid pro quo. So the mayor wants this administration to focus on helping in the area of gun laws to get the guns off the street, and that is understandable. If she's saying if he want to help, he can start there. So I thought that was an interesting conversation that she had with the press yesterday, being the 22nd, July 22nd, on Wednesday. And let me see how much time I got left before I go into, because I just don't want to cut off on you all again before I go into. So I thought that was some hefty details for talk. So I'm going to try to go over. So last week I mentioned as well uh, portions of the mayor's economic poverty plan. And it's a 4-part poverty plan, but my internet started acting up as I was talking about it. So I really didn't get an opportunity to go into full detail on what her plans are. And if you are familiar with them, I hadn't heard about them, about this 4-part plan, until I started doing research. And I'm like, why is this not a more of a conversation? But that's why I'm here, right? So she has a plan. She has a plan in place to eradicate poverty in this generation. And a lot of people are saying, how are you going to do that? No mayor has been able to do that. What other mayor has tried? It's what I would like to know. But it's seriously, what other mayor has tried is what I'm interested in knowing. And I know people have they issues with this current mayor, but I mean, it's kind of a bold stance and disinvestment in the city of Chicago in certain areas like the South and West Side areas that have issues with violence. Putting focus on those areas and investing back in those communities, like we talked about last week, is very important. So I think I mentioned like the first two, but I'll mention them all, which are part of the 4-part poverty plan. And this is all a way for us to see how we can get active and how we can participate in some of the things that she's doing, and participate in going in and really investing and helping people that's really doing the work. So first, the city will work to reduce expenses for the city's most vulnerable, and that includes addressing the high cost of utilities for low income residents that unevenly affects people of color, especially seniors, and investing more into transit accessible, affordable housing. The second one is City Hall will work to expand quality jobs and increase income levels of residents in the city. And they've already approved the minimum wage increase to $15 by 2021. That's a part of the plan. And also on the agenda are fair work week rules, support for home care workers who are overwhelmingly women of color, and building a green economy with career development. That's great. For people who were formerly incarcerated, that's all good. Third, the city will work to end the racial health disparities in the city, like the 16-year death gap between downtown and the west side. You all familiar with that? So what that is just saying that people in certain parts of the city of Chicago, because of health disparities, they have a shorter lifespan than those in other parts of the city, or the more wealthier parts, like the downtown areas or whatever. So these efforts will tackle infant and child mortality. And you all know that I work with Illinois Violent Death Reporting System, and we put out a data brief or a short fact sheet this year addressing child sleep safety, infant sleep safety, and the numbers for sleep safety, like kids who die from sudden, kids who parents who lose their children to sudden infant death syndrome. The numbers in certain areas are higher, and so that's really on point. But it includes violence prevention strategies and expand community-based mental health treatment through the mayor's $9.3 million framework for mental health equity, and address the disproportionate environmental health impacts of pollution on communities of color. And if you are familiar with Chicago, you know that this environmental health impact of pollution has been an ongoing conversation throughout Black and Brown cities, Black and Brown communities throughout the city. Also, and the fourth and final one that's on her plan is the city will promote wealth building among individuals, families, and entire communities. Achieving this goal will require securing more access to consumer credit for low income residents so they can pay for cars, homes, higher education. The mayor says that the framework is only the beginning, which is true because it takes a lot. But she said that it's only the beginning, and more solutions will be developed to engage with residents. Some and these are some of the best ways to get involved is really knowing, starting to know and engage yourself in some of the information that's coming out. A lot people are really trying to get their messaging out, and this is a good opportunity before things change and shift because COVID-19 is taking over again. So I believe that we have the opportunity to start doing our own due diligence and our own work to find out what we can be involved in and who we can connect with if we decide to spend money. The winter is coming. A lot of organizations invest in feeding the homeless throughout the winter. So just find ways to connect with people so that we can get involved in investing in these communities and stay committed to them. Stay committed to them. When you get with the connect with the person, if you mentor, check on them, call in, set up something where you have a donation going to them from your own account or something like that, so that you are really investing, because investment means more than just showing up one time, doing something, and going home and feeling good about yourself. So I think that I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to try to compile a list, and I will hold myself accountable to this. I will try to compile a list of organizations that I've vetted in the Inglewood area, in the Austin community, North Lawndale, South Shore. In those communities, in those community areas, I will try to pull together a list, that I vet, that if you trust me, that will be hosted on One Purpose Magazine website, so that we can support these organizations, give to them, and help. That's what it's all about. It's our investing, our support. Um, I do think that it's important for us to love thy neighbor, look out for the least of these. I'm working towards my well done, good and faithful servant, and it is my way of kind of evangelizing, you know, if that's what you want to call it. But it's just who I am. So that's the meat of that conversation. And so my final time.